You're watching Sky News at 8, live from Brussels on what has been described as a black day for Belgium.
3 explosions rocked this city this morning. 34 people were killed. Islamic State say that they carried out the attacks.
Horror at the check-in. The twin suicide bombings at Brussels airport. Police released CCTV footage that could show the killers. The questions over whether they hid their detonators in plain sight. Among those caught up in the aftermath, our senior correspondent Alex Rossi. We have his eyewitness report.
The question of hearing the sound. We felt the sound. We felt the shockwaves of those explosions.
An hour later, there was more carnage here at the heart of the European Union. Another suspected suicide bombing on the metro killed 20 people. In all, more than 200 people have been injured as the world unites behind Belgium.
Tonight, our chief correspondent reveals the suicide brigade of foreign fighters detailed in IS files. And we'll ask the implications for security at home of this terrible attack abroad. Good evening from Brussels, another European city rocked by a coordinated terror attack. I'm live at Brussels Zaventem Airport, where at least 14 people died. Dozens more, including one Briton, were injured when 2 blasts went off inside the terminal building.
Just over an hour later, another explosion hit Smalbeck metro station, where I am this evening, this time killing at least 20 and injuring more than 100 during the busy commuter rush hour. Belgium has raised its terrorism threat to the highest level as its Prime Minister spoke of his anguish that what his country feared most has now happened.
Islamic State militants have claimed responsibility for the attacks, which come just 4 days after Salah Abdeslam, the main fugitive from the terror atrocity in Paris last November, was seized by authorities in this city. We're going to be assessing the world's united response against terror in just a moment. First, Sky's Alex Rossi, who was personally caught up in the aftermath of the airport attack.
The smoke from the blast descends across the departure hall in a deadly cloud. These pictures were taken seconds after the suicide bombers struck. People cower on the floor. Everywhere there's uncertainty and fear as the injured stumble in the gloom, trying to reach safety. Around them, bodies and debris from the blast. The fear is that more explosions are about to come. Luggage lies abandoned as many people run for their lives.
It felt close. It wasn't just a question of hearing the sound. We felt the sound. We felt the shockwaves of those explosions.
We just passed through security when we heard the explosions. We were waiting to board a flight to Tel Aviv. Around us, terrified passengers flee, but they're unsure about where to turn.
Can you tell me what's happening?
We're not sure. We just heard a large explosion outside.
We have a big bang. Everybody cried and came along here. We saw kind of smoke, you know. So the shopkeeper went out and said, no, it's nothing urgent because they are working here.
It was a very loud explosion.
Yes, it was very loud. Yes, it was not something that fell on the ground, you know, or something like that. It was you felt kind of shock.
It was very frightening. I mean, I heard it. I was in duty free.
Yes.
It's very frightening.
Yes, it was.
Others speak to their loved ones on the phone, telling them they're safe. Many people just stare blankly, traumatized. whilst children hoped for reassurance. Eventually, the authorities managed to evacuate the building. On the tarmac outside, the victims shiver with cold and shock, many of them wrapped in blankets to keep warm.
Our first thing is get people off tarmac and go to a secure area. So please line up and take the buses, please, as soon as you can. If you can, women and children first for the buses. We'll get going.
Andrew and Denise Brandt told me they were about to fly to Asia when they heard and felt the blasts.
How far do you think you were from the explosion?
I don't know.
It felt muffled, so I knew we were not very close to it, but we were close enough that it reverberated throughout our entire bodies. So I don't know how far, but
they said it happened
too close.
They said it happened in check-in.
It was just a woman with a baby in her arms, and she told me, I have a second baby. Where is he? And I was looking for him.
I didn't tell you.
This was the softest of targets, a major airport in a European city. It was busy with business people and families about to start their journeys.
We heard the explosions less than an hour ago, two very loud blasts. We were in the duty-free. We'd been through security at this time. The walls of the building shook. There was dust coming from the ceiling. We saw people running towards us, great deal of confusion and chaos. One woman had blood streaming down her face. The airport itself has now been evacuated, and people have been told they're being taken to a crisis centre.
It's now emerged the Belgian intelligence services knew an attack was imminent, but there wouldn't be just one. As we were being taken out of the airport, the terrorists strike again. This time the target is a metro station close to the European Union's main institution. In the darkness below ground, children's screams fill the tunnel. This is what terror is. The number of dead would continue to rise throughout the day. The injured were treated on the pavement or wherever they lay. Back at the airport, it was still unclear whether the attacks were over. People attended to the wounded as the army and the police moved in. The federal prosecutor has now released an image of 3 of the suspects. The men on the left, dressed in black, are thought to be the suicide attackers. The man in white wearing a hat is still at large and described as extremely dangerous. The country's Prime Minister, Charles Michel, said what they had been fearing for so long was now a reality.
For us, there is, of course, a before and an after. We are very shocked by the information and the witness statements we heard, as well as the images we saw. These images will remain engraved in our memories.
There are, of course, many unanswered questions about the attacks. How many terrorists were involved and how many others are still at large? Brussels is a place consumed by fear. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Zaventem Airport.
Well, it all happened a good 12 hours ago, and Alex Rossi has joined me now. And Alex, even for an experienced news correspondent like yourself, that was a real eye-opener this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very frightening. I mean, we're obviously used to going to atrocities and seeing and recording firsthand, but not being caught up in it. We'd finished an assignment covering the capture of Salah Abdel Salam, the surviving member of the Paris attackers. He's, of course, now in a maximum security jail in Bruges. We'd arrived at the airport. I was about to fly back with my team to Tel Aviv, where I'm now based. And we got there actually quite early because security is that much more difficult if you are flying to Israel, a country very used to terrorist attacks. We'd gone through check-in, we put our luggage in, which has been taken to the plane, and then gone through the screening with our hand luggage. We'd have just arrived in duty-free, sort of walking around trying to find chocolates for my kids for Easter, and then we heard 2 very large explosions, no more than 10 seconds apart. The building around us rocked,
dust started coming down from the ceiling, people around us all panicking. It was terrifying. It was very, very, very frightening. And I think instinctively all of us knew at that time that it was a terrorist attack. It couldn't have been anything else. Then we saw people starting to sort of come towards us who had managed to get out of the check-in hall. One woman with blood coming down her face. Another man I saw in a wheelchair with blood on his legs, injured. But people not really knowing what to do. I mean, I think the other thing as well is that there's a kind of vacuum. People don't know where to go. They didn't know where was safe. We certainly are aware, working in this business and being familiar with the operations of terrorist groups, the arc of these things. One bomb goes off somewhere to try and canalise people into another area. Another bomb goes off. So I'm sure that was in the forefront of other people's minds as well. Is there going to be another terrorist attack? Is this over? Is there more to come? And it took a long time for the authorities to sort of understand what was happening. But I think instinctively everybody did know that the airport was under attack, and it was as a result of terrorists.
Alex, thanks very much indeed. Alex Rossi's eyewitness report there.